We've talked about how Motorola was the standard of excellence for manufacturing excellence, and then how GE in the 90s was then the standard of excellence for the way businesses were run. What do you say to executives at companies that bring you in that earnestly want to change the way they do business for the better, to save money in their production, to generate more money from the same resources that they have? What do you say to them when they ask you, well, why doesn't Motorola still talk about Lean Six Sigma daily? Why doesn't GE still talk about Six Sigma daily?
It's a good question. You know, all this stuff is a point in time. It's like truth. You know, truth is the intersection of two thoughts in time. And as soon as it's past, it's gone, you know? And that's the same kind of thing with this thing is, if the behaviors of the organization don't continue to support that kind of thinking, you know, again, I can tell you exactly the point where Motorola changed. It was at the point where they declared that we don't have to emphasize this 10-to-1 improvement anymore. We are the leaders in the industry. Mm-hmm. At that point, they went into decline, and they've been in decline ever since. They did one other thing. They you know, it's been documented fairly well. It was in the same time period of the 9/11 attacks in 2001, but there was a CEO there, and it's well documented, that he believed so much in some of the words and not really understanding how his father had worked, as Chris Galvin, by the way, or how Welch had worked, or any of those other guys. He believed in his participative management principle so much that he would do things like, he didn't have complete consensus of his staff that the Iridium project that they had invested a couple $1 million with in was not going to be viable, and they spent another $1.5 billion before they decided to pull the plug. You got to know the balance between participative and autocratic. And again, you and I have seen Jack Welch run, and he had that balance down pretty well. You know, maybe a little bit biased towards the autocratic, but there's got to be some point in time every leader has got to say, no, this is it. And you can't pull that trigger very often, because if you do, you lose credibility. But you can't fail to pull it if it's necessary. So, you know, there's a whole series. But you see the same thing. GE's not the same company as it was. Mm-hmm. Maybe they moved into the right markets. Maybe they're going to emerge another 10 years from now of having made exactly the right moves for the last 10 years. Maybe. But they aren't that same leader. They don't have the same stock price. They don't have the same respect on Wall Street. And they may actually be doing everything exactly right, just nobody understands why it's exactly right. And that could be all there is to it. But I have a limited view of what happened to the Six Sigma program at GE. But what I saw in 2003, 4, 5, somewhere in there, it had become more a value stream mapping project than a Six Sigma project. Nobody was diving deep. Everybody was thinking that if I map these processes and take a little bit of time out of delivery of this CAT scan take it from 6 months down to 4 months, yoo-hoo, you know. Mm-hmm. And so it lost the meaning in that transition. And and maybe they understood their customers better. Maybe I don't know. But it didn't have the same drive. It didn't have the same emphasis. And it certainly didn't have the same hair on fire, Jack Welch kind of attitude as, guys, that's West, are you going with me? Right?
Right.
And that's nice. You can have this, but I've seen it 3 times. His name was Galvin, Bossidy, and Welch. And I'm looking for the next one.
Yeah.
When I find that guy, I'm going to hook up with him for 5 years if I can, and then call it a day,
Yeah. I just attended the